listen, I am your host. I am your hype girl. I am your home girl next door. I am Marshall Sterling. Listen, and we are here tonight to go on a journey together. I want to thank you as always for always coming on and supporting the journey, for lending your time, and for just being a part, for coming to get your vitamin M, where you know that the M stands for motivation. And I am here to make sure that you have a great start to your next week. If you are a follower and if you are not, listen, you should know the three things that makes our purpose. Our purpose is to do what? To produce positive thinking, to exhibit resilience, and listen, to keep fighting among any situation. We always want to be able to show up. We always want to be able to be there and do those things in life that we know that we should do. Listen, we are in week 2 of my story. Everybody has one. What's yours? And on tonight, we are joined by another special guest that has given me the opportunity to sit and chat it up and to talk about their story. So listen, Mr. Danny Ross is joining us on tonight. He is an author, a public speaker, a psychotherapist, and the founder of DLR Counseling Group, an Arlington and South Lake, Texas-based practice that provides personalized counseling services for individuals, couples, and families. He is also a licensed professional counseling supervisor, a national certified counselor, and has his elementary teaching certification with his ESL endorsement and a preschool counseling certification. I am so excited, guys, for us to join us on tonight. So let us welcome our guest, Danny L. Ross, to the Vitamin M Show. How are you?
Hey, I am doing so great, Marshall. Thank you so much for allowing me to be with you tonight. I'm so excited. I'm ecstatic that you even thought enough of me to add me to your program.
Oh, you are, listen, you know, when you connect with people and they are good people and they have valuable
Yes.
things to add, I had to allow you and give you this chance to come on because
Yes.
I really do. What I know and what I believe is that
Mm-hmm.
everybody has a story, Danny, something to tell,
Yes.
something to share. I get the opportunity to share my story. And so I also want to give that platform because I also know that I don't know it all. And there is
Right.
somebody that you need to be able to connect to their story. So I gave them a little bit of background about you, Danny. Tell the audience something else you want to, that you, like your background, who you are, something else they need to know.
Yeah. As she said, I'm a therapist and I work primarily here in the DFW area. I recently got licensed in Mississippi, and one of the reasons me being licensed in Mississippi is this because I found a need for good practicing therapists who can help people in my area. I know when I needed counseling, I couldn't find it. So one of my big goals is to offer counseling and make it available to everyone. A little bit about me. I come from a small town called Columbus, Mississippi. It's about 20,000 people. I am the sixth of 7 children, son of Reverend James Ross Sr., who was deceased by my age of about 4 or 5. And I recently lost my mom. And one of the things I was just thinking through as we were going through this, and I was just thinking about how my identity has changed since losing my mom. And because I knew that I could go home at any time and mom would be there to support me and make me the best things since sliced bread. Um, Also knowing that I just had another home to go through if things didn't go right. So it just changes you a little bit, but I'm getting ahead of myself. But we were talking about who we are and our stories. And I just realized, like, so recently how my mom is such an instrumental part of my story and who I am today. I'm just thankful to be here again.
Yes, Danny. You listen. Danny is the audience. Danny is already shooting it out.
Already, let me stop. Let me get it. Let me pull it back. I'm ready.
No.
I'm gonna let you guide.
That is it. But that's the thing about it. And this is why I brought him, because he has so much to share. So Danny, we're
Mhm.
kicking it off. You've already
Okay.
started, and I'm gonna kick it off with the question. I'll say it again. The series is my story. Everybody has one.
Yes.
What's
Yes.
yours? Because I am a believer that we all have a story. We all have something to share. And so, Danny, I ask you the question, what's your story that you want to
Mhm.
share?
Mhm. I think one of my stories is recognizing, and I do a presentation, and part of what I do is I share like my story and who I am, because I think all of us can connect to another person being authentically themselves, sharing a part of themselves, where they came from, what makes them who they are.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes our stories are distorted by different things. And
Ooh.
sometimes we forget that they're distorted, but we go out here and we go into different groups. So there's the Danny when I'm with my homeboys. There's the Danny when I'm with my folks up in Columbus. There's Danny when I'm over in the primarily white school district that I was a school counselor in. There's a Danny who is with his clients. And so what I've learned is we all move around in these different roles, perpetrate. And sometimes I always say we do so much perpetrating that we don't even know who the real Danny or
Ah,
Marshall is. You hear me?
wait, did you say we're perpetrating? Wait.
Perpetrate, perpetrate,
Perpetrate. Come on, talk about. Wait a minute.
perpetrate.
What?
See, I'm bringing one of the words back 80s, 90s. We
Yes,
perpetrate up in here.
perpetrate up in here.
So one of the things though we really do have to do is understand that those roles and those identities that we assume, sometimes those aren't authentic. I feel like I'm turning 51. I turned 51 this year. I'm just authentically becoming who I am supposed to be to some extent. And even in that, Marshall, I recognize that I'm still becoming. I feel so much more settled and not trying to perpetrate and be something that I'm not. I think about when I was in some of those, who am I? When I was in some of those roles in the school system, where I was in the primarily white school districts, I tried to keep myself together. I had to be
Mm-hmm.
the best teacher
Yep.
possible. I
Mm-hmm.
would stay in the classroom to 8 or 9 o'clock at night. You know why? I just did not want to be called out. I didn't want to be that outlier who did not have his things together, or he just, a lot of times we do that to ourselves. Like we create this
You better
dialogue and this
wait.
narrative.
You better say, Danny, you better say that. I think that is powerful when you say perpetrating, because I think we do. I think sometimes we try to say code switching, but I don't
Mm-hmm.
know that it's code switching. I would more so, like, I would agree with you. It's perpetrating. You're showing up not as your
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
authentic self, and you do,
Yes.
depending on the situation. You are right, you trying to keep yourself together, you trying to do this, you trying to do that, because you want to keep this certain
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh
persona.
yeah. Oh yeah. Well, I even think about probably I've been in private practice for the last 3, 4 years,
Mm-hmm.
but probably prior to that, the last 3 to 5 years before getting out, I started going through this metamorphosis in a sense. And
Wow.
I was saying, if these folks don't know who I am by now, my hard work, what I've put out, the programs I've started, they just won't know me.
That's real
Because you
true.
know what, Marshall? It was so hard trying to keep that perfect persona on all the
That
time.
is, you know what? But that is so true. Danny and audience, we're going to continue this conversation because this is getting hot. We're going to continue this conversation after these messages.
The Mind Your Mindset Retreat with Marshall Sterling will help you reset your mindset, stretch, breathe, rest, and de-stress. With gentle stretching exercises, guided breathing techniques, restorative rest sessions, mindful meditation practices, and special keynote addresses from Marshall Sterling, you can expect to leave renewed, refreshed, and restored. Email mdsterling@marshallsterling.com to set up a one-on-one meeting to find out how to attend this exclusive event. Limited slots are available. Don't miss out on this chance to recharge and refresh.
Welcome back. Welcome back. Listen, Danny and I are in here just having ourselves a good old time. And
Oh, yes.
Danny, I think I don't forgot about the clock a couple of times to bring myself back in
No,
to make sure.
no.
We were, Danny, okay, you were going to talk to us about when we were on commercial break. We kind of jumped into something, and audience, we're on
Mhm.
commercial break talking in between the breaks. We were talking
Yes.
about identity. Danny, tell us about our identity, though.
Um, I wrote a book and it's called The Messages We Carry, and it's a workbook for Black men. And I wrote it during the George Floyd season of my life. I'll be honest, I was really angry. I was pissed off, but I started out with the idea, who am I? And if we
Ooh,
don't deal with those messages, those ideas, those things that we've been told about ourselves, what grandma said about us, that we stuffed it down on the inside, that you lazy, you don't know how to work, those kind of things stick with us. And so, say for instance, I attach it to a George Floyd type situation. Is it just about George Floyd?
no.
No, it's just about what grandmama said to me that was down. It was about what happened to
Yes,
me when my uncle did X, Y, and Z when he called me Fat Danny. And
yes.
I had to decide that I was no longer going to be Fat Danny. I had to decide that I'm going to have him use my regular name. And I said, please don't call me by that name, because that is not my actual name. My name is Danny. And he looked at me like really shocking. But I was just saying, like, if we never grab that bull by the horn, it is always going to have power.
But you know
And it
what?
may be, go
What?
ahead, go ahead.
But Danny, you make a great point there. But you had to. It was
Mhm.
an you did an action, and I want you to
Yes.
like really like that action was
Mhm.
you stood up. But what made you stand? Because I think a lot of times we just
Yes.
allow things to happen to us.
Mhm. I think I had to challenge the messaging. I
Okay,
said, yes, he is an adult, but what he's doing is taking my spirit, is breaking my spirit, and it's making me feel less than. Marshall, we're talking about this. I lingered and dealt with this until I was in college. This was my freshman year in college when I finally stood up to my uncle and I said, please don't call me Fat Danny anymore. And it's so funny. Sometimes we, just because we've been called something, we identify that. I looked at
yes,
some of my youthful pictures, Marshall. I wasn't fat by today's standards, but because somebody had ascribed a name to me, what did I do? I
we
owned it. I
we owned it.
chose not to own it anymore.
Ooh, ooh, ooh.
Come
What?
on.
My question. Wait a minute. Then I asked, what are you owning? What are you
Ooh,
owning? What are you owning that somebody has said about you?
come
And you
on.
had to go back and look and you were like, "Well, wait a minute. I wasn't even
Mhm.
like I wasn't even fat. So why was I owning that?"
Marshall, I think like there are certain stages, like I was talking about, we have these different identities.
Mhm.
I did not, my dad had died when I was about 5. I feel like
Okay.
that is, as we know educationally, that's a critical
Cool.
age of
Ooh.
who you become, coming to who you are.
Yes.
And so, what do I connect with me? The first person who calls me a name, who is somebody in esteem, somebody, an adult. And I just, well, he's an adult. I guess he knows better. I had to realize just because he's an adult, he doesn't know better.
Nope.
He's probably a sad person who is trying to exert his power on somebody who
Yes.
doesn't have power.
Mhm.
And so I changed my narrative for one.
That is so powerful because we also the flip side of that then is when
Mhm.
we think about that, we have to stand up. But when you also say that we have to be mindful of what we say to people so that we don't say
Yes.
things that they
Mhm.
then attach to themselves because it may
Oh, yes.
even jokingly, like we have to be careful about what we say
Mhm.
even jokingly
Oh,
like that.
definitely. Definitely. I even had a teacher who called me Dumb Danny in 5th grade. Now, I was in the high achieving, they had tracking back then, but we
Yes.
weren't supposed to know that. But I was in the higher math group, and I couldn't get this fraction type thing under my belt. And so she said, Dumb Danny, figure it out in front of the whole class. And after that day, and therefore on, I had problems in math. I say, and I became a teacher for, I think one of those purposes is to recognize I never get a chance to do it over when I'm working with young people. They
Yep,
get that one day in your class to be with their teacher. And you got to decide, even if you don't feel like, who are you going to be in that one day? I see that even in families. Who
that's
are you
true.
going to be as a dad or a mom or a cousin or an uncle in that one day?
Yep, I
Don't
think
think
so.
about you get to have these do-overs.
Nope. You know what? And that is so true. Listen, we want you guys. We're gonna put up on the screen. We have literally ran out of our time, people. That's how much Dan and I have been talking and just having
Mhm.
a great conversation about my story.
Yes.
Everybody has one. What's yours? We're gonna put on the screen so that you guys can go and follow him on all of his social media. You can follow his counseling group and be able to reach out to him.
Yeah.
Listen, this has been Danny's story. I love you guys. I appreciate you. Thank you for joining me on tonight. This has been your Vitamin M.
Join us next week to get your weekly dose of vitamin M. Please visit our website at www.marshallsterling.com.